Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad with Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravajakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad with Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 12th day of January 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the introduction on page 11 of most of your books. And I'm just going to read the last couple of sentences of the previous paragraphs because it leads right in. Purified consciousness means acting in accordance with the instructions of the Lord. This is the whole sum and substance of purified consciousness. Consciousness is already there because we are part and parcel of the Lord. But for us, there is the affinity of being affected by the inferior modes. But the Lord, being the Supreme, is never affected. That is the difference between the Supreme Lord and the small individual souls. And you can turn this down a little bit for me, Dimitri. Thank you. What is this consciousness? This consciousness is, I am. Then what am I? In contaminated consciousness, I am means I am the Lord of all I survey. I am the enjoyer. The world revolves because every living being thinks that he is the Lord and creator of the material world. Material consciousness has two psychic divisions. One is that I am the creator, and the other is that I am the enjoyer. But actually the Supreme Lord is both the creator and the enjoyer. And the living entity, being part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is neither the creator nor the enjoyer, but a cooperator. He is the created and the enjoyed. For instance, a part of a machine cooperates with the whole machine. Excuse me. A part of the body cooperates with the whole body. The hands, legs, eyes, and so on are all parts of the body, but they are not actually the enjoyers. The stomach is the enjoyer. The legs move, the hands supply food, the teeth chew, and all parts of the body are engaged in satisfying the stomach, because the stomach is the principal factor that nourishes the body's organization. We're near the bottom of page 11. Therefore, everything is given to the stomach. One nourishes the tree by watering its root, and one nourishes the body by feeding the stomach. For if the body is to be kept in a healthy state, then the parts of the body must cooperate to feed the stomach. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the enjoyer and the creator, and we, as subordinate living beings, are meant to cooperate to satisfy Him. This cooperation will actually help us, just as food taken by the stomach will help all other parts of the body. If the fingers of the hand think that they should take the food themselves instead of giving it to the stomach, then they will be frustrated. The central figure of creation and of enjoyment is the Supreme Lord, and the living entities are cooperators. By cooperation, they enjoy. The relation is also like that of the master and the servant. If the master is fully satisfied, then the servant is satisfied. Similarly, the Supreme Lord should be satisfied, although the tendency to become the creator and the tendency to enjoy the material world are there also in the living entities, because these tendencies are there in the Supreme Lord who has created the manifested cosmic world. We shall find, therefore, in this Bhagavad Gita that the complete whole is comprised of the Supreme Controller, the controlled living entities, the cosmic manifestation, eternal time, and karma, or activities. And all of these are explained in this text. All of these taken completely form the complete whole, and the complete whole is called the Supreme Absolute Truth. The complete whole and the complete Absolute Truth are the complete personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. All manifestations are due to His different energies. He is the complete whole. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Shri Parampara. One time out. By the way, I want to thank you all for coming. I don't do that, but I'm going to do it from now on, because I know it's a sacrifice. Also, our internet participants, thank you. So this...
You're welcome, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I don't even think of you as in the Zoom land anymore. You're here in the room all the time.
You're very kind, Prabhu.
So Srila Prabhupada is citing a verse from the 4th canto that some of you may be familiar with. Yatatra robul nishecharena tripyanti tatskanda bujo bashaka. Pranopahara chayatendriyam tataiva sarvahana machiteja. And it also refers, the context is the reason why we don't need to worship the demigods separately, and it's foolish to do so. So the same, just exactly what Prabhupada is describing here. It's clear to anyone who lives in the world a little while that watering the root of a tree is the proper way to feed the tree, or the root of any plant, but the tree is most obvious. If you try to water the branches and the fruits and the leaves separately, it won't work. The tree will die. Similarly, supplying food to the stomach nourishes the whole body. So similarly, serving Krishna satisfies all the gods, because they're all really part of the universal form. They're the bureaucracy. Page 12 now. We're on page 12. And our problem is that we detached ourselves. Instead of being cooperators and working to please Krishna, we try to be separate enjoyers and controllers and masters. And since that's not our constitutional position, we suffer. And the only form of life in which we can understand these things and try to get out of the suffering is the human form of life. This is going on in all different species, this struggle for existence. This is one of my favorite verses you may have heard before. Yasmat priya priyava yoga sa yoga janma shokagnana sakata yonashadayamana. This is Prahlad Maharaj describing in 3 lines the whole situation of the conditioned living entities and the suffering. So he says there's a shokagnana, the fire of lamentation. It's caused by a very simple thing, which we all experience, but we don't analyze it this way usually. Things which are dear to us, and just by being in this world, we establish attachments, things very dear, beginning with our own body. What could be more dear than that? But then extensions of the body, the family, the children, the brothers, the sisters, all these things. And then property that we may have that give us enjoyment, sense of security. All these things form our field of things that we want to hold on to or we aspire to attain. But inevitably, by the course of time, those things which are dear are taken away from us by force. If nothing else, old age, disease, and death is going to take the body away. But way before that, usually, there are periods in your life when things are, you lose your money, you lose your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever. So that's the source of of the fire of lamentation. And on the other side, things which you don't want to happen are forced upon you. Disease happens, bankruptcy happens, insults, threefold miseries, they just happen just by being in this world. And that's another source of misery. And not only that, but the anticipation of both of these things is another source of misery. You're perfectly comfortable at home, everything is going nicely, you have your loving family and everything like that. But your friend or somebody who you know, a relative, just had a disaster in their home, their husband died, or wife died, or something happened, and you think, oh, that might happen to me. So you internalize that. That's another source of anxiety on both sides, right? There might be some danger coming. Then you have the insurance to try to mitigate, not the danger. Danger is going to happen, but the anxiety around the danger. Oh, it may happen, but I'll be able to deal with it. So this is material life. So in human form of life, we have various remedies. We call them duk aushadam, remedies for the misery. We try to negate this situation. But then we find that the remedies become sources of more misery. This whole thing with climate change, it's all grown out of this completely artificial society based on fossil fuels, and everybody wants to enjoy and have a car. I saw this picture of a traffic jam in China. We get our 8-lane highways, in LA, and I've been in those. It's like a 30-lane highway, I swear. It was like so many lanes you couldn't even believe it, and every one of them was filled with cars. They got 1.5 billion people there, and they all want to be middle class, and some of them want to be very rich. It's crazy. And, because Prabhupada explains in a tape how in a normal society, civilized society, vast number of people are living a simple agrarian life, and supporting like that. There's Brahmins, there's intellectuals, and there's teachers like that, and people who rule. But most of the people are simple like that. And they have a little village, and they have their friends and relatives, within walking distance, mostly. And maybe you get a little carriage, it takes you 5 minutes. And you have your life there. But because of the availability of the cars and even the planes, he tells on this tape, on this recording, that he was aware of I think it was in England, where they were flying on the regular job. They're getting in a big job. They're getting in an airplane in one city and flying to another city every day in order to do their job. And even just ordinary Joe gets in the car and goes commuting, and he's saying, like in Calcutta, you have to get so early, to get on the buses, and everyone hangs over the buses and the trains, to get to work. You get back late. He says this child was growing up, and he was just 3 years old, 4 years old, so he goes to bed early, gets up later, and he never saw his father. His father would, leave before he got up, and he would come back after he took rest. So one day he got a little older, and his father came, and he said, "Who is that man, Mother?" "Oh, that's your father." He didn't even know who he was till he was 5 years old. That's extreme, you know. So a complete artificial. They try to solve one problem, and they create a million other problems. So this is the problem with materialistic life. The unforeseen circumstances. Then you have to have something to negate that, you know. So the point of this verse is that if you give up your attempt to try to enjoy separately, and you simply serve, you know, this story. It's a funny story how the senses went on strike. I forget, there's a Hindi or Bengali phrase, Udarindaranam or something. But we had a devotee here, you know, you remember these things. He did a play, a one-man play of this. I know this devotee. He came here years ago and right in the middle of the temple room. So he set up a table and there was a lot of fruit on the table. You know, a big bowl of fresh fruit, bananas and apples and pears and things like that. So there was a curtain around the table and he was hiding under the table and the hand was trying to enjoy the fruit separately. The whole idea is that they're envious of the stomach because they're working, doing all the work, and they're putting the food in the stomach. What about us? We should be enjoying. So the senses went on strike. And so he reaches up, you know, he's under the table behind the curtain, and the hand reaches up and he tries to, and he gets the banana, and he smushes the banana, you know, until it's, and it's funny, you know, and the point is to try to enjoy separately from the real enjoyer, you'll make a mess of it. You'll end up suffering. And what happens is they're not being nourished, so the senses are getting weaker. And finally they have a meeting and say, our strike is useless. You know, we should go back to feeding the stomach, then we can get nourished like that. So that's the realization of the devotee, is that we try so hard to enjoy separately from Krishna, but we end up not enjoying, suffering like anything, and taking another birth, and who knows what is going to happen. So the idea of, again, working to satisfy the supreme enjoyer and the control and the owner, Ishramashramidam Sarvam, will actually make us happy, because that's our constitutional position. Like the hand, it's to serve my desires. If the hand doesn't do that, it becomes useless, paralyzed, and you have to try to get it. So that's the whole point here, and Prabhupada is just taking a little time in the introduction to explain. And he brings it all back to the 5 subject matters. This is really, is the Ishvara and the Jiva, right? And the time, and Prakriti, nature, and karma, activities. And when you think about it, our whole life consists of those different things. So how to work within that paradigm and live in such a way that we're progressively becoming detached from matter and curing the disease of independence, of thinking we're independent actors. When we're completely dependent. Haven't we learned that from this horrible disease? Your very breath is contingent upon all of these conditions. That you don't get the disease, that you know, and then so what to speak of everything else. All right, let's go on.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, you have a question?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
May I?
Yes.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu. The quote from the first paragraph you read today is as follows. Quote, for instance, a part of a machine cooperates with the whole machine. Mm-hmm. A part of the body cooperates with the whole body. The hands, legs, eyes, and so on are all parts of the body, but they are not actually the enjoyers. The stomach is the enjoyer, end quote. So, Prabhu, based on this quote, my question is as follows. Why is it that the stomach is recognized as the enjoyer in relation to the material body and not the heart? Because you know better than me that the place where the Lord lives is inside the heart as the supreme witness, supreme enjoyer, supreme permitter. So I'm confused here.
You're overthinking it. It's an analogy. It's not. You know, it's not the absolute truth in all respect. The idea is that even in our own life, you know, when you have a nice meal and you fill up the stomach, then you feel satisfied. I mean, and if the stomach is empty and you feel that, you can't enjoy anything. You know, let's go to the movies. No, let's find something to eat. You know, so the idea is that the stomach is the enjoyer, because it's the place where the food is digested and all the energy starts coursing through the body. And it's generally a measure of satisfaction when you have nutritious enough and sufficient food, you know. So that's as far as you take it. It's understood. It's not the absolute truth. Yes, we enjoy in the heart and so forth. But that's the whole idea is it's an analogy. How Krishna is the enjoyer. If he's satisfied, then we'll all be satisfied. You know this famous story where Duryodhana had the plan to cause trouble for the Pandavas, and they were out in the forest. Devahuti was it? Not Devahuti, Draupadi. Sorry. And she had a benediction that she could feed as many people as needed to be fed, as long as she didn't eat. If she ate her lunch, then she couldn't do that. So Duryodhana, he got a benediction to Devas. Said, "I'll take it later." And one of these, I'll take it later, just like with Ram, you know, dangerous. So he said, "Yeah, now I've got the bone. Now you go out into the forest where these Pandavas are with their mother, with their wife, and I guess Kunti was there too. And you go with your 60,000 disciples, and you go right after lunchtime." Because he's a Brahmin, you know, and they have to honor him. They're Kshatriyas. And asked to, "Can we come for lunch?" And they can't say no, you know. So Draupadi had already cooked, and everyone was satisfied, and then they show up. So they said, yes, you go take a bath in the river over there, and we'll be able to feed you when you come back. There's 5 of them with a little pot, and then 60,000 disciples. So they're all anxiety. Krishna comes. And he says, "You have any little leftovers, something?" "There's nothing left." You know, he said, "Just look in the pot." You know, they find there's always something left. A little piece of shak, you know. So he eats the shak, and all the 60,000 disciples and the Vasamuni feel, "Oh, we're completely full." So they were embarrassed that we can't eat anything now, you know. So they slunk away, you know. The problem. So that's a kind of a funny and dramatic example of it. But that's the idea, is that the stomach is the enjoyer in basic material sense, and we can all relate to it. And but the other hands and the legs and everything have to cooperate in order to feed the stomach. You know, again, go out and get any food itself. It's dependent. So, but if the hands and legs and everything else don't cooperate, then they'll suffer. There won't be any food. You shouldn't overthink it, Prabhu. Is that okay?
Yes, as usual, better than okay.
Okay.
I have a new adjective, astonishing answer to my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, Haribo. Another question. Go ahead.
Prabhu. So, most of people in general, like even materialistic life, they believe in cooperation. Like, we know that body cooperates, we know that they create societies to do cooperation, all these big organization,
yes,
doing job, there is cooperation. But when it comes to cooperating with God, they are against it, right? Like, how to understand this? Like, why?
Because the thing is, in the modes of nature, you tend not to believe in things beyond your immediate senses. And we can see that if we cooperate and work together, we can all make a lot of money. You know, if we all compete against each other, it's very primitive, you know. So people do that. You know, they do that. They're not doing it out of great joy. You know, they're forming unions and sometimes going on strike. You know, but they realize to work together we can do something material. That's impressive. But unless one is blessed with a little insight or previous agata sukriti or something, one will not have the vision even to suspect it might be true that there's a controller over everything, and you know what I mean? In other words, that's a rare vision, and that's why the great souls they wander trying to make people fortunate by giving them a way in which they can begin to ask ultimate questions. That's why it says, the famous first sutra of the Brahma Sutra, Now you should inquire into the absolute truth. And you'll find the same thing in the second chapter of the first canto. Kamasinendriya pritir. I mean, that's really, the human life is not meant for sense gratification. One should live as simply as possible without exaggerating the needs, you know. Then what should we live for? Jivasya tattva digyasa. One should live in order to inquire into the truth, the absolute truth. And narto yasti ekarmabhi. Your actions should not be directed toward anything else. And then the next verse tells you what that absolute truth is, without wasting any time. How do I know? We have to find those who do know, the tattvavidas, the vadanti tattvavidas tattvam jnanamadvayam brahmeti paramahatmeti bhagavantiti shabdite. Now all of those are completely beyond our ability to see with our ordinary senses, whether it's Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. So therefore, we need that intermediary. We need that medium, that trustworthy, transparent medium who can give us the means by which we can purify the senses and perceive directly. And that's the key element, that faith, where we're ready to undertake the process that we don't understand from the material point of view. But we have faith in this person because there's a connection there and he's showing qualities. Yeah. Oh, we have a further discussion. Oh, we have a mic already.
So Prabhu, this question is there in my mind for a long time. If Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and like what you said, like Asmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam, like once, like if he is satisfied, then the whole world is satisfied. Then why in the Vedas there are so many like hymns of like other demigods, and there are this like instead of telling Adhado Brahma Jignasa, like inquire about the absolute truth. Like why it's not so clearly declared that just engage in the devotional service and
because people are not ready for it. In other words, this whole idea of Vyasadeva writing the other parts of the Vedas, which was not fully satisfying for him, Karma Kanda and all these things, because at least with the Karma Kanda, you're in the Vedic paradigm, you're within the Vedas, and there's also mention of Vishnu. You also offer to Narayan, and so. At least there's some restriction, but often it doesn't always work out that way. That's why they started misusing the Vedas, the parts of the Vedas where there's slaughter. It's meant to be this way, but they misuse it. That's the nature of human beings in the modes of nature, that they cheat. They don't want they want immediate benefit. So the idea that you quoted that, what is it? Something tushtam, jagat tushtam? What is Yasmin tushte? Yeah, if he's satisfied, the whole universe is satisfied. And that was the whole point of this little pastime. The problem is that that's a special situation. I mean, Krishna is always satisfied. He has uncounted servants who are satisfying him. But he's just like Prahlad. He's not fully satisfied because you have all of these poor souls who have turned away from him, and they're his offspring. So he comes, reestablishes Dharma, which is the hope, So then he becomes more satisfied. I mean, for him, he's always satisfied in his lila, but at the same time, he feels the need to try to help us. So we have to differentiate actual satisfaction of the soul with superficial satisfaction of the senses. People don't know anything about the soul. They don't even know that they are souls. They're thinking they're the body. If the body is satisfied, I'm satisfied. But it's very flickering. It's temporary. Real satisfaction is permanent, lasting, even in material difficulties and miseries. The great souls, they remain satisfied. Perfect example, Prahlad Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, who went through so much in the preaching, and others, Haridas Thakur. They were connected firmly to Krishna, and anything that happened externally would not, damage that sense of connection and safety, even in danger. So that's a very high state of pure consciousness, and it's not. The whole problem is due to asatsanga, bad association. We've acquired so many impurities in our conscience, in the mind and the senses. These need to be cleansed. That's the whole idea. What is it? Atakshi Krishna namadi nabhave grayam indriyai. With these contaminated senses, we cannot grasp. I love this word grayam. You know, there's a word, I can't grasp what you're talking about. There's a way, you know, understand, you know. It's exactly like that. With the materially contaminated senses, we can't perceive Krishna as he is, you know. So we need ways in which we can perceive him. And he reaches out, his holy name, the deities, the prasadam, the great devotees, to give us a chance to become attracted and become purified, so gradually we can perceive, you know, with this transcendental senses. So it's a more refined example. Satisfaction can be there in the modes of nature, but it's temporary and illusory. That's the whole problem. But real satisfaction is only there permanently when we satisfy Krishna.
And just an extension, like if Krishna is waiting for the souls to come back, rather than waiting for the Kali Yuga to give Nama Sankirtana, like if Krishna appears in the Satya Yuga and gives like the holy name, like Krishna in the past times in Satya Yuga itself, like this degradation would not have happened, right?
In other words, why wait 4,500 years to come as Lord Chaitanya? Why not just in Satya Yuga have the kirtan going?
like how to understand
you know, there's a certain schedule, and we should be thankful that we're so fortunate. You know, I point that out. The day of Brahma is like 8,600,000,000, you know, so it is twice yes, 12 hours is 44,300,000,000. So once in a day of Brahma, Krishna comes, and then in the following Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya comes. So here we are, you know, Krishna's been a mere 5,000 years ago. Lord Chaitanya is practically in living memory, you know, 500. And so we're extra fortunate. Now, we don't know our history, why we're so fortunate to take birth at this time and be interested in this, you know, seriously. But whatever it is, we should take advantage of it. So, you know, there's only so many things that we can figure out and understand. But there's certain things that are certain, we should be certain about. That, you know, Krishna is real, he's God, and as soon as you chant a little seriously, you can feel the presence. You can feel there's something there. You know, Prabhupada was on a morning walk. I think it was a morning walk, and he was asking, why do you believe in Krishna? You know, and everyone was quoting the Bhagavad Gita, this and that. Said, no. And one devotee pointed up, because we experienced his presence, you know, in a rudimentary way. Yes, because it's a real experience. And that example of the meal, that verse, the famous verse, Bhakti Padeshanubhavo Virakti, Bhakti Padeshanubhavo Virakti, Anyata Chaisha Trika Eka Kala, Papadyamanas Yatashantuksi, Tushti Pushti Chadapayo Nugasam. The Yogendras in the 11th canto. That one who is surrenders, Papadyamanasan, experiences three things simultaneously practically. Bhakti Pada Isha Anubhava. First thing is bhakti, which is the experience of loving exchange with Krishna. Pada Isha Anubhava means the existence, the presence of the Lord. And the other is vairagya, detachment from things material. Bhakti anyata cha. Prabhupada would often quote the first line and the first two words of the second line. These three things. And Virakti anyata chaisha, cha isha, Bhakti Pareshanubha Virakti Anyata Chaisha Chika Eka Kala, practically simultaneously, for the surrendered soul. Just as Yata Ashnatak, when one is eating, Tushti Pushti Chadapayo Nagasam. With each bite, you're experiencing pleasure, Tushti, and nourishment, right? And your hunger is going away. So the hunger is material hunger, that's also going away. So this is Prabhupada came to give that experience. And because of the power of the holy name in the process of Sankirtan, someone who was just a little experienced, you know, a little serious about taking part, sitting there in the kirtan, you know, Prabhupada's chanting away, you know, with full concentration for an hour, say before speaking, and then another hour of kirtan, then prasadam, basic program. You have an experience. You're listening, you're chanting. It doesn't matter what you believe. You're getting exposed to the holy name. It's just like you put your hand in the fire, you're going to get burned, whether you're a kid, whether you're 40 years old, doesn't matter. So that's yes. It's you may ask, well, why didn't he do this before? Because it just, you know, he has his own schedule and his own reason. But we should be happy that he did it now, and we have this. take advantage of it. All right, I'd like to read a little bit more, if possible. Isn't it? This is rich, though, isn't it? This introduction is very rich. It's wonderful. It is also explained in the Gita that impersonal Brahman is also subordinate to the complete supreme person. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Brahman is more explicitly explained in the Brahma Sutra to be like the rays of the sunshine. The impersonal Brahman is the shining rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Impersonal Brahman is complete realization of the Absolute Whole, and so also is the conception of Paramatma. Incomplete, I'm sorry. Impersonal Brahman is the incomplete realization of the Absolute Whole, and so also is the conception of Paramatma. In the 15th chapter, it shall be seen that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purushottam, is above both impersonal Brahman and the partial realization of Paramatma. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Satchid Ananda Vigraha. The Brahma Samhita begins in this way: Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Savakarna Karnam. Govinda, Krishna, is the cause of all causes. He is the primal cause, and he is the very form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Impersonal Brahman realization is the realization of his Sat, or eternity feature. Paramatma realization is the realization of his Sat Chit, eternal knowledge. But realization, I think that was fixed to eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss, in the complete vigra of form. Now, those who are familiar with the Ishopanishad may recognize that Prabhupada is quoting almost verbatim here. I think he's reading from his Ishopanishad at this point. People with less intelligence consider the Supreme Truth to be impersonal, but he is a transcendental person, and this is confirmed in all Vedic literatures. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, Katha Upanishad 2-13. As we are all individual living beings and have our individuality, the Supreme Absolute Truth is also, in the ultimate issue, a person. And realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all of the transcendental features in his complete form. The complete whole is not formless. Now here's the way it reads now. If he were formless, or if he were less than any other thing, then in any other way, then he could not be the complete whole. It's a subjunctive case. The complete whole must have everything within our experience and beyond our experience, otherwise it cannot be complete. This is right out of the Ishopanishad. The complete whole, the personality of Godhead, has immense potencies. Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shuyate. How Krishna is acting in different potencies is also explained in the Bhagavad Gita. This phenomenal world, or material world, in which we are placed is also complete in itself, because the 24 elements of which this material universe is a temporary manifestation, according to Sankhya philosophy, are completely adjusted to produce complete resources which are necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. There is nothing extraneous, nor is there anything needed. This manifestation has its own time fixed by the energy of the Supreme Whole, and when its time is complete, these temporary manifestations will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the complete. There is complete facility for the small complete units, namely the living entities, to realize the complete, and all sorts of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete. So Bhagavad Gita contains the complete knowledge of Vedic wisdom. Now, does anyone know why the word complete appeared so many times in there? There's many completes. It's unusual because of that verse. Om Purnamadak Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Prabhupada writes his whole first purport in the Ishopanishad about the complete units. So what is this completeness? The idea is that everything is available for us. This movement is actually a manifestation of a complete program for self-realization, God realization. The Prabhupada started out with practically nothing. He had his books, his precious books that he was selling, and they gave him confidence to come to America. But he knew there would need to be more than the books for him to succeed. But he also knew that the books were so potent that if someone bought it and read them, then they would become interested and curious, and then they would become into the association. You know how it starts, Adau Shraddha, Tataksaru Sangha, Bhajana Kriya. Those three is what Prabhupada came to create. A little faith, which he explained. In that instance, Shraddha means different things in different contexts. It means a little interest, respect. And that's what happened. People came, they heard the kirtan, they respected him and heard him a little bit, and heard him read the book, And in this way, their tender creepers were nourished, and a few were able to become advanced enough to make other devotees. So there's a complete program that Krishna has set out for us to succeed. The problem is that we don't follow it. We try to create our own program of exploitation and sense gratification and all these different things, and it's always changing. It never stays the same. They have it's just like I was Yugoslavia. Used to have Yugoslavia, right? But the geopolitical forces, you probably know better than me, created a situation where the people didn't share enough to have a nation. They split up, right? In the Croatia and Serbia, and it's another different thing. People's allegiances change, their ideas change, a new generation grows up. That's what asat means. Asat means it's always changing. And therefore, there's a sense of unreality about it, of non-existence. Because something that will not exist and didn't exist before ultimately doesn't exist. And that's this body. But the body, while we are in it, we can use as a tool for self-realization. I love this verse from the 87th chapter of the 10th canto. This is a prayer of the personified Vedas. They're praying in Garbhadakshay Vishnu. Twadanupatam kolai minamatma sarit priyavat chadati taton muketuhi te priya atmanicha napatadamantaho vasadupasanayatmahano yadanashaya brahme urubaye kusharir bratah. Which means they say this human form of life is especially suited for realizing you. And when one is in the fire of devotional service, then the body itself becomes very dear and precious. You appreciate it for what it is, like a vehicle for advancing. It's not you, but it's something that you can do. And on your side, you're helping from within as a super soul, and everything is very nice. But alas, he says, bata means Nabadaramanti, those who don't take their pleasure in serving you in this way, with this body, they worship the impermanent, asat upasanaya. And everybody's doing that who's not Krishna conscious, more or less worshiping their own body, other bodies, money, this and that, whatever's out there. And in this way, atmahano, committing like spiritual suicide, temporarily, you can't kill the soul, but you understand. And then what's the result? They wander throughout different worlds and different bodies and situations, and sometimes taking horrible bodies which produce great fear, as opposed to this favorable body of human life. So it's a call to use this precious human life for its intended purpose, for advancing the soul on its way back to Godhead. So that's why there's a complete, Krishna sees that there's a complete facility for us to advance. Okay, we have a little time. All Vedic knowledge is infallible. Is that okay? And Hindus accept Vedic knowledge to be complete and infallible. For example, cow dung is the stool of an animal, and according to Smriti, or Vedic injunction, if one touches the stool of an animal, he has to take a bath to purify himself. But in the Vedic scriptures, cow dung is considered to be a purifying agent. One might consider this to be contradictory, but it is accepted because it is Vedic injunction, and indeed, by accepting this, one will not commit a mistake. Subsequently, it has been proven by modern science that cow dung contains all antiseptic properties. So Vedic knowledge is complete because it is above all doubts and mistakes, and the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. Now, you just imagine, someone's reading this for the first time, and if you actually have some faith, it says, wow, we hear these stories, and what a precious book I'm holding here. This is this book is beyond all doubts and mistakes, and is the essence of all Vedic knowledge. And that Vedic knowledge contains all instructions for perfecting human life. What a bargain, huh? What is it, $10? Vedic knowledge is not a question of research. Our research work is imperfect because we're researching things with imperfect senses, including the mind. We have to accept perfect knowledge which comes down, as is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, by the parampara, or disciplic succession. We have to receive knowledge from the proper source in disciplic succession, beginning with the Supreme Spiritual Master, the Lord Himself, and hand it down to a succession of spiritual masters. Arjuna, the student who took lessons from Lord Sri Krishna, accepts everything that he says without contradicting him. One is not, anyone know that phrase? Sarvam etad ritam manye yanman vadasi keshava. It's in the 10th chapter. I accept as true everything you say. Very important attitude. One is not allowed to accept one portion of the Bhagavad Gita and not another. No. We must accept the Bhagavad Gita without interpretation, without deletion, and without our own whimsical participation in the matter. The Gita should be taken as the most perfect presentation of the Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is received from transcendental sources, and the first words were spoken by Lord Krishna himself. The words spoken by the Lord are called apaurushaya, meaning that they are different from words spoken by a person of the mundane world who is infected with 4 defects. So apaurushaya simply means superhuman. A mundaner, 1, is sure to commit mistakes, 2, is invariably illusion, 3, has the tendency to cheat others, and 4, is limited by imperfect senses. With these 4 imperfections, one cannot deliver perfect information of all-pervading knowledge. Now, one thing about those 4 defects, I like to think of them kind of in a certain order, which is that we start out, and we can easily admit that we have imperfect senses. And because we have imperfect senses, we make mistakes. I gave a slideshow on this one time. I have a slideshow. Where the classic mirage in the desert. You know, you're driving in a desert nearby, and then it looks like there's water in the road. You know? When you get there, and it disappears. So the mirage is a perfect example. Probably would use the example a lot, you know. So the senses are obviously imperfect. So therefore you make mistakes. What's the biggest mistake? I think I'm the body. That's it. Now, that matures, you're making that mistake moment to moment, and it matures into an illusion. It's something you live by, that you believe, that you're absolutely convinced of, and no one can convince you it isn't true. That's who I am. This is my name. I weigh so much. I'm the father of this person, and I'm the son of this other person. That's who I am. Look, you can see my license. That's the picture, and there's my address, my weight, right? It's all a mistake, right? It's a big illusion. And because it's a big illusion, you also pass it on. You teach it, you know? It's a given. You teach your kids as they grow up, yes, this is your name, you belong to this Gotra family, da-da-da-da-da-da. So the 4 are, first, it's imperfect senses. You make mistakes. Those mistakes congeal into an illusion or delusion, which you then pass on or teach. So those are the 4 defects that prevent us from having any absolute knowledge. So we have to find someone who's not subject to that, who's giving knowledge, who's this idea of a transparent medium, giving perfect knowledge that originates with Krishna. That's the parampara. As soon as there's a mistake, as Krishna says, by the force of time, what does he say? Evam parampara praptam, imam raja shiyo viduhu, saeva mahato, how's it? Say kala mahato yoga nashtapananda. Thank you. So this knowledge that I once taught to the sun god is now lost because in the course of time it gets destroyed. So now I have to speak it to you. I have to reinstate it. Otherwise, there's no chance. And then it's just darkness. So that's the beginning of the Sandarbhas. The Tattva Sandarbha is the first Sandarbha. And Jiva Goswami establishes the Bhagavatam as the ultimate pramana. Pramana means a source that you can trust, that will give you knowledge that's genuine, but that we can't get on our own because it's beyond our senses, you see. So he says, the Bhagavad Purana, the Srimad Bhagavatam, is the spotless Purana, and it's the sum total of all of the essence of the knowledge, and so that's why it's so beloved of the Vaishnavas.
Hare Krishna.
Dravida Prabhu?
Okay, one more. How about, was that Dhanabhari?
Yes.
All right, Dhanabhari, you have something?
Yeah, quick question, Prabhu. Thank you. When you said that we are the defects, the mistakes we make. One of the mistake is cheating, like attitude. What does that mean? Like we are all.
I think,
we
yeah, I
have-
think you're conflating a few of them. There's these four progressive defects. It starts out with imperfect senses in mind, which I think everyone can agree on. And then, due to that, we make mistakes. We mistake one thing for another. We see imperfectly, hear imperfectly, like that. And the biggest mistake that we make is that we're convinced that we're the body. And that becomes a given. That's just the way it is. That's called a delusion or an illusion. So you have imperfect senses, therefore you make mistakes, and you become deluded. And from that delusion, then when you teach it, you pass it on. It's the blind leading the blind, you see? And the real truth becomes covered that way. So we need to find a source of knowledge that's not dependent on imperfect persons who have these four defects. And that's the Vedic knowledge. That's the Shastra that we're given. It's beyond the four defects because it's coming down from Krishna directly. Prabhupada said Krishna spoke the original word. So that's why having the Bhagavad Gita as it is, Prabhupada was adamant. They have all these Bhagavad Gitas, but people are misinterpreting it for their own purposes. Then the science as it is has become lost. That's Krishna says in that same verse, right?
So, Prabhu, my other thank you for explanation that how do we in practical life, even though we know this knowledge or whatever, but in like bodily concept, this how do we get out of? It's like even though, like I said, we know what we shouldn't be thinking we are not body, but all the name in order to function in life, it's always bodily since we are
Yes.
born. How?
Well,
Yeah, it's just-
this is why, those of us who were fortunate enough to have like a full-time job in the Hare Krishna movement, just doing that. It's very auspicious. It's difficult when you're out there. You have to associate with it. So you need to take a retreat, at least a weekend, extended weekend, or maybe a week or a month. Go to the Dham, and maybe going to India is too much, all the travel and everything. But go to a temple, go nearby a temple, or festivals are great. Rath Yatra, of course, Janmashtami. In other words, when you can, at least for some time, just do bhakti to build up your spiritual muscles, so that when you go back out and you have to deal with all these other things, you'll be stronger. It's really difficult if you always have to associate with non-devotees and talk with them and deal with that. I can understand how hard it is. So you have to make your home a temple as far as possible, and control what the sounds and the sights and the smells and everything are in there. And
Thank you so much. Very nice.
take a retreat.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
All right.
Dravida Prabhu, very quickly, if the Gita should be taken as the most perfect presentation of Vedic knowledge, what about Srimad Bhagavatam? How would you categorize Srimad Bhagavatam?
More perfect. We have perfect, most perfect, more perfect. Have you ever heard of that? Krishna's Leela in Dwarka are perfect. But Mathura, they're even more perfect. Vrindavan, most perfect. So it's the same thing. Bhagavad Gita is perfect, but Bhagavatam is most perfect. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.